Alright guys, so today we are going to be watching a video on this channel, SunnyV2. He makes excellent videos. Anyone who hasn't been to his channel, it's just, his videos are just fun to watch. Today we're going to be watching a video called Rappers Who Went Broke in the Stupidest Ways. Alright, let's check it out.
Before filing for bankruptcy, 50 Cent was spending $108,000 per month to rent an 18-bedroom mega mansion, while T-Pain's bankruptcy was so brutal that by the end of it, he had to borrow money just to buy Burger King. However,
Okay, why would you, if you're 50 Cent, why would you rent a place? Like, why wouldn't you just buy a place? And like, how bad would you have to be with money to like have to borrow money for Burger King after you've had like tens of millions of dollars? That must feel terrible, man. Like, I knew a guy who had hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then he had to borrow money from me to buy Subway. And when he bought Subway, I was like, yo, like, you're fucking broke, man. Go buy some eggs and some toast. But, you know, whatever.
let's begin by talking about DMX, who had to file for bankruptcy on 3 separate occasions as he couldn't afford child support. You see, DMX had 17 children with 11 different women, and almost every child resulted in some kind of lawsuit or child support requirement. For example, DMX was sued for $1.5 million.
Why would why do you think he would learn after like his 5th child or 10th child? But no, he just keeps doing the same bullshit. Holy fuck, man. That's just
worth of child support in 2008 after a genetic test confirmed that he was the father of a previously unclaimed baby, which when combined with his declining music career resulted in his first bankruptcy filing. 4 years later in 2012, DMX was sued by a different ex-partner for a further $1 million worth of child support, and a year after this lawsuit he'd file for bankruptcy a second time. His third bankruptcy would occur in 2016, during which it would be discovered that DMX had racked up a further $1.7 million worth of unpaid child and family support, which accompanied $950,000 in bank debt and $1.7 million worth of tax debt. Since he had,
you know, in some countries you actually go to prison for not paying well, in the US I think you go to prison for not paying your taxes, but in some countries if you don't pay your debts, you go to prison, right? So these guys are lucky here, man.
$0 in his bank account. DMX was sentenced to 6 months in prison for the child support, a further year in prison for the unpaid taxes, and was also ordered to pay the government $2.29 million in restitution after he was released from his time behind bars. However, DMX never had the chance to pay the amount back in full, as he'd die in April 2021, and despite his extensive family tree, DMX never wrote a will, meaning that his family was still involved in money-related legal battles even after he was dead and buried. Tyga was certainly better at managing his child support payments, although he definitely had a weakness when it came to luxury spending. After cultivating his career as a successful rapper, Tyga's name entered news headlines after he'd purchased a $200,000 Mercedes Maybach for his girlfriend, while being $480,000 behind in rental payments on a luxury Malibu home. As a result, Tyga was sued by his landlord, although he'd failed to show up to court as he was on holiday in Turks and Caicos. Yet this situation wasn't the only example of Tyga spending big in one area while being financially behind in another. For example, in 2016, while shopping for a new Bentley, Tyga's Ferrari 458 was repossessed in the parking lot as Tyga hadn't been paying for the loan.
So he goes to buy one car, and while he's there, his other car gets repossessed. Like, why would if you have credit, like, wouldn't his credit just be like shit? Like, how could he keep leasing cars like that? Like, I don't get that.
Despite this, Tyga would go on to purchase another Mercedes Maybach, as well as a Land Rover, a Rolls-Royce Ghost, and a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, all of which were repossessed for non-payment.
How could he keep leasing cars? Obviously, they were repossessed, so he was leasing them, right? Or something, right? How could he keep leasing cars if, I mean, after one repossession, you think you'd be flagged, right? Like, your credit would be like down the drain. I don't know. I don't understand it.
while he was seen looking at a brand new Lamborghini. In addition to this, Tyga was sued by a second landlord for $181,000 after once again missing rental payments in 2016.
Why are these guys renting? I don't understand. Like, why would you rent when you have tens of millions of dollars? Just buy a nice fucking, buy a nice pad. Like, buy a nice place. Buy a house. Like, don't buy a house with like 100 rooms. Just buy a house with like 10 rooms, man. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Which was followed by a third property-related lawsuit in 2020, where Tyga had racked up over $200,000 in damages and unpaid rent on yet another rental property. It was then revealed that Tyga was being court-ordered to pay for $200,000 worth of unpaid jewelry, which accompanied the accusation by his ex-girlfriend Black China that he'd been missing child support.
Jewelry is the worst investment ever. I saw another video. These rappers, they waste so much money on jewelry, and they actually... a lot of time they end up buying fake jewelry. I don't know, man. Like on a micro scale, like even at a low level jeweler, like you think like an $800 silver chain, right? Just the cheapest basic silver chain, like $800 chain. And if you want to sell it the next day, what are you gonna get for it? Like the metal's probably worth $150 or something. You sell it at the bullion dealer, you're going to get like $150, $200 max. So it's not a good investment, right? But these rappers, man,
support payments. And just to add a cherry on top of the cake, while all of this was going down, Tyga was in $890,000 worth of tax debt to the government. Despite all of this, Tyga is still seen flexing a lavish life on social media, which is a luxury unavailable to rap producer Scott Storch, who blew through $70 million in less than 3 years. Scott had earned this money by producing for some of the biggest names in music, including Kanye West, Dr. Dre, and Jay-Z.
How do you blow through 70 million? Well, I guess we're about to find out. Let me guess. He didn't pay his taxes and bought a bunch of jewelry and cars he couldn't afford.
Scott Storch's insane net worth began to diminish after he'd purchased an insane supercar collection,
30 cars, including Bugattis and Ferraris and all that kind of stuff,
as well as a $10.5 million mansion where he housed more than 20 staff, including a boat captain, just in case he wanted to go out on his yacht.
The captain was on full-time staff?
Yeah.
In case you want to take the boat out?
Yeah.
And the boat was how many bedrooms?
7.
7-bedroom boat, worth about how much?
20 million.
20 million.
Scott went on to explain just how much this lifestyle was costing him.
My monthly overhead for my household employees was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million a month I was spending.
And that if he continued to work, there wouldn't have been any problems, although this isn't what he would do.
It went from me working and delivering to doing drugs and not going to the studio.
I just stopped.
See, a lot of these rappers and artists, they just they start making money and they start living their lives as if they're always going to make that kind of money. But in reality, most music artists, I mean, a lot of them are one-hit wonders. A lot of them are memes. They end up being a meme for a while. And then, after that, I mean, most NBA players, they go broke within 2 years of, I think like 70 or 90% go broke 2 years after their careers are over. So I don't know, man. It sounds to me like these guys need like financial advisors or some kind of wealth managers on their side, accountants, and fuck.
Stopped working, and then I got depressed and jaded.
As mentioned, Scott stopped making music and instead began to get addicted to the nightlife in Miami. And with no money coming in plus $1 million a month going out, it was only going to be so long before Scott hit zero. By 2009, just 3 years after having a net worth of $70 million, Scott had filed for bankruptcy. 6 years later, Scott would file for bankruptcy a second time, claiming to have a grand total of $3,600 of assets to his name, $100 in cash, $500 in clothing, and a $3,000 watch. Most shocking, his music companies are valued at $0, and in 2014 he made a grand total of only $10,000. Throughout this hardship, Fat Joe was one of the only rappers to keep their friendship with Scott, possibly because Fat Joe went through a similar situation himself. Fat Joe had earned $1.18 million in 2007, $1.28 million in 2008, $265,000 in 2009, and $630,000 in 2010.
I saw this thing about it was about Muhammad Ali or boxing or something years ago, and the guy who was talking, he was saying that basically someone like Joe Frazier or Muhammad Ali, they would have, if they were getting 1/10 the amount for their fights and there was no other options, they would still take those fights. So because he was saying that basically because these guys didn't earn their money, they didn't respect the money. That's another thing, you know, easy come, easy go, right?
However, despite having made this $3.3 million in only 4 years, Fat Joe failed to pay taxes on it. He was able to come up with $718,000 and had also done extensive charity work. However, this wasn't enough to satisfy the judge, who sentenced Fat Joe to 4 months in prison. Despite taking personal responsibility for his actions by stating, "There was a lot going on in the years that I didn't file my taxes, but it was my responsibility," less than 4 years later, Fat Joe entered news headlines again after the IRS revealed that he still owed them $1.1 million in taxes. However, this number was absolutely nothing in comparison to Fat Joe's friend Lil Kim, who owed almost 4 times more and became, quote, too poor.
Whatever happened to her, man? She looks like dude, like, what the fuck? Like, why did she get plastic surgery? Like, a little bit okay, but like
Kim, who owed almost 4 times
to that, like, what the hell? Like, and these plastic surgeons that do these procedures, man, that's like, that's wrong, man. Like, you know, like, obviously the plastic surgeon wants to, you know, make a bunch of money, but that's just fucked up, man. Doing that to someone, like, I don't know, man. Look at like J-Lo, like, she just like, I'm sure she's done some stuff too, J-Lo, but like, she just keeps in shape. She eats good, and you know, that's all you need to do. You don't need to do all this shit to yourself. Like, fuck.
Times more and became, quote, too poor to file for bankruptcy. Lil Kim wasn't nearly as successful as some of the
That's bullshit. You're never too poor to file for bankruptcy. Unless, like, sure, if you want to pay a lawyer to file for bankruptcy or some bankruptcy specialist, but I mean, if you could do it yourself, or I think the government helps people out that are like, there's government services, right? Like, it's sad.
The other rappers featured on this list. However, this didn't stop her from purchasing a $2.3 million mansion back in 2002, notably with the help of a mortgage. Throughout the 2000s, Kim's music career slowed dramatically, and by 2018, Kim was filing for bankruptcy as she still owed the full $2 million on her property, despite the 16 years that had passed. In addition to this, Kim now owed $1.85 million to the government for 13 years worth of unpaid taxes, which accompanied a further $185,000 in unpaid legal fees. The bankruptcy became even worse after discovering that by 2018, Kim was earning a comparatively small $18,000 per month, of which $2,000 went to staff, another $2,000 went to clothing, and $10,000 went to travel fees, meaning she had less than $4,000 per month to dig herself out of $4 million worth of debt. Somehow Lil Kim managed to, quote, get her finances into good shape, and her bankruptcy filing was dismissed. However, MC Hammer,
no, but Lil Kim, she got her finances in good order. Probably she was able to get some equity out of her house, because if she bought her house in the early 2000s, she probably the price went up probably quite a bit, so she was probably able to get some equity out of that, and that's how she was able to bail herself out.
Wasn't quite so lucky. Despite having the 5th best-selling hip-hop album of all time, which sold 17 million copies and featured songs such as You Can't Touch This, MC Hammer wasn't able to stay out of financial trouble. He bought more than 17 luxury cars, a private jet, 2 helicopters, and 21 racehorses. Some of the horses were valued at around $1 million. Most of his expenses, however, were on his home. He bought a property in Fremont, California for $12 million and spent another $30 million on renovations to turn it into his dream home. He added a bowling alley, basketball court, baseball field, recording studio, movie theater, 17-car garage, tennis courts, and 2 swimming pools to the 40,000 square foot mansion. One of the pools was shaped like his signature baggy pants that came to be known as Hammer Pants. He added several marble statues of himself throughout the property and installed a gold hot tub in his bedroom. And to keep everything running smoothly, he employed a staff of nearly 200 people on the property, which cost him an estimated $500,000.
See, that's the thing. Like, why do you need a property with that many houses? And then, like, you think, like, the property tax, the maintenance, like, because, you know, you're not mowing. It's not like you got a lawn that you have to mow or something. Like, this is like, you know, he probably had like a massive garden, and like, think about it, a baseball field, a football field, like all of that needs maintenance. Like, fuck, man, these guys really don't think ahead, right? And like, when you customize a house like that with statues of yourself and like a pool that's shaped like baggy pants, who's gonna want to buy that? That has like, first of all, selling like luxury properties, like extremely luxury, like high-end luxury properties, is a lot harder than just selling like, you know, an average house or an average or you know, slightly above average, or, you know. But when you're talking about like super high-end properties, like, it's hard to find buyers sometimes. Depends on the economy, right? And when it's really customized like that, like, who wants to buy a house with statues of MC Hammer, a meme from like the 90s, man? Like,
a month. Unsurprisingly, less than 5 years later, MC Hammer had filed for bankruptcy, at which point it had been revealed that he hadn't only spent his entire $70 million fortune, but had also taken on a further $13 million in loans, which had been borrowed from over 200 different lending institutions. Despite having spent a total of $42 million on his California dream home, the property resold for only $6.5 million. However, if we're on the topic of expensive homes,
let me hear that again. He spent how much and it sold for how much?
Million on his California dream home, the property resold for institutions. Despite having spent a total of $42 million on his California dream home, the property resold for only $6.5 million.
$42 million and it sold for $6.2 million? This is what I'm talking about. Like, it's hard to sell like you know, it's like just like a car, right? Like, you buy a car, any car, luxury car, whatever. If it's stock, you can sell it. If it's customized, a lot of times the value actually comes down. You can spend as much money as you want, but the value goes down because people don't want custom shit. People want stock. So, you know, they can either resell it or they can do whatever they want to it, right? No one wants, like I said, who wants a place with like a pool shaped like MC Hammer's baggy pants? Like, what a Looney Tune, man.
However, if we're on the topic of expensive homes being repossessed by the bank, we need to talk about Birdman, who's ranked as the 15th richest rapper in the world with a net worth of $100.
Okay, how did he go broke? 110 million? How do you go broke? Like, literally, like, you just have to be like, it's just sheer idiocy.
$10 million. But this is what makes Birdman's story unique. If he was worth over $100 million, why was his Miami mansion being repossessed by the bank for non-payment? Birdman had purchased the home back in 2012 for $14.5 million.
That's a nice crib, man. That's a nice house. But you know, that's the thing. These kind of houses, it's a lot easier to sell an average house, like something, you know, that's above average. But like, when you go into the range of like super luxury, like $20 million properties and such, there's only so many people out there who want those kind of properties, who even have the money to buy those kind of properties, right? So it's harder to find buyers, right?
Yet by 2017, a foreclosure suit had been filed by the bank, and quote, all personal items within the home, including platinum records gracing the walls, a pool table, and dozens of pairs of shoes, were all confiscated and placed in storage. The mansion was eventually sold by the bank for $10.85 million in July 2020. However, Birdman's lawyer has come out to explain the foreclosure, stating that it was the result of illegal loan terms set by the bank, so perhaps take Birdman's bankruptcy with a grain of salt. However, there's no ambiguity around how T-Pain went broke, as he's now come on multiple podcasts to explain just how brutal his bankruptcy was. T-Pain had built up a net worth of over $40 million at his peak in 2007, with all of his closest rap friends advising him that as long as he kept rapping...
Yeah, but $40 million, and then you have to pay tax, and then you have to pay for your management fees and all the other people that are, you know, taking a cut, right? And then how much are you left with in the end, right? That's the thing. Like 40 million, let's say 20% goes to tax, 10-20% goes to management fees and whatever, and then what's left? Like, maybe if you're left with half, 2/3 is good, half is also good, I'd say.
The money would keep on coming in.
Everybody before me that I had to look up to, they were just like, no, this is great. Once you start rapping, it's just money all the time. Nothing bad's ever going to happen. Your family's not going to come after you. Just rap, and it's just girls and swimming pools after this.
For this reason, his spending began to get out of control.
I bought my Bugatti. He bought it for...
But how is that? Like, most musicians, like, most pop stars, rappers, like, they don't continually make that much money. Like, usually they blow up for a while, and then like most of them don't make, like, they don't make that much money just on and on and on and on, right? A lot of artists are just one-hit wonders, right? And a lot of artists, they're hot for a while, they're at the top of the charts for a while, and then it dies down. Like, so how would you think that if you just keep rapping that you'll be good forever, right? That's the thing. They start spending money as if they're always going to make that. Like, when they start making a lot of money, it gives them like this rush. Like, they get high off of it, and their ego blows up too, and they think that they're always going to make that money, when in reality they're not.
$2.1 million. $2.1 million. And then very shortly thereafter, you sold it for, all they gave you was $800,000. Yeah. So it was like renting a car for $1.3 million. Yeah.
With the purchase of his Bugatti accompanying a $400,000 chain and houses for his workmates.
I got this house I want to get. I got this other house for my assistants and, all my runners and my producers and stuff. So we bought a house after that, and we just started going crazy with the money. I wasn't paying attention to it.
Which was extra bad, as T-Pain never even checked in on how much money he had.
I didn't want to know because I was led to believe that it's only gonna grow. Because these rappers told me that I'm just gonna make money forever. It's just gonna keep going up and up.
In the process, T-Pain began to create less music, and within a few years, his accountant was advising him that he was almost out of money.
My accountant was like, dude, you're like out of money. And I was like, no, I'm not.
And while T-Pain seemed confident that he had plenty of cash left, reality set in for him after he'd have to borrow money just to buy food.
When you say you was broke, you had like $0 broke?
I had to borrow money to get my kids Burger King.
What's the most you ever had in the bank at one time?
$40 million.
However, T-Pain was lucky to get away with a loss of only $40 million, as the final person on our list makes this number look like loose change: 50 Cent. 50 didn't only release the 10th best-selling American hip-hop album of all time, but he also made over $100 million on a vitamin water investment, plus a...
How do you go broke when you make $100 million? Like, what are these? I don't understand, man.
Further $78 million from a luxury underwear deal. In the late 2000s, 50 Cent made an estimated $300 million in only 2 years. So when he'd announced that he was filing for bankruptcy in mid-2015, with debts totaling over $32 million, the entire world was thinking the same thing. How did this happen? Well, after 50 Cent uploaded a sex tape with Rick Ross's girlfriend, 50 was successfully sued for $7 million, which accompanied another court order for 50 Cent to pay $17 million to a headphone manufacturer after one of their collabs went sour. 50 Cent's clothing company G-Unit Clothing then fell out of the spotlight, which accompanied the closing of his movie company G-Unit Productions, as well as his boxing company SMS Promotions. Throughout the whole process, the global financial crisis had taken a toll on the value of 50 Cent's investments, and by 2015 he was earning a comparatively small $185,000 per month. You could certainly argue that this was enough for 50 to get back on his feet. However, $108,000 of this monthly income was going toward an 18-bedroom mega mansion, while the remaining $77,000 was going toward menial expenses such as his gardener, with bankruptcy documents revealing that 50 Cent still owed money to his stylist, fitness coach, and even his barber. Despite this, he began to troll on social media with posts such as this one, spelling out the word broke with $100 bills, and within 2 years, 50 Cent had paid back $23 million worth of his $32 million debt. 50 Cent eventually got back to zero, and according to Google, has built up a net worth of $40 million over the last 5 years.
Well, he's lucky, man, and but I don't know how. I don't know, man. Maybe he just filed bankruptcy to avoid paying. But all these guys, the way they spend money is just ridiculous, man. It's just ridiculous.